Today on Locked On Red Wings, breaking down the signings of James Reimer and Alex Lyon.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the daily AGWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And on today's episode, guys, we're going to go over the free agent goaltenders that the Red Wings signed this year, James Reimer and Alex Lyon. And then we're going to probably finish out the episode on how do you feel about it Friday. I can't imagine we have a full 30 minutes to talk about these two goalies. But yeah, Scotty, we're going to start off with James Reimer. I'll be honest, when the Red Wings first signed James Reimer to a 1 year, I believe it was 1 year, 1 year deal, $1.5 million contract, 7-team no trade list, I was kind of surprised. I mean, of all the goalies that were out there, I was shocked that Reimer, given how bad his year was with the San Jose Sharks, and given his age, would be the guy that they would call upon to get that contract.
Yeah, so one of the things that we talked about going into the offseason and into free agency specifically was how to address goalie. And we had talked about, you're going to have to make up your mind. You're either going to have to acquire somebody who you think is good enough to be like a 50-50 split, essentially, with Husso, or you're going to have to just go, you know what, we believe in Husso for the time being. Let's go kind of more of a pure backup role. And I think with this, they probably lean more pure backup. But, and we'll get into obviously later, they brought in multiple. They brought in depth. And that was something that last year's net did not have, right? Like last year's goalie situation, they may have had 3 goalies on the roster at one time, but at any given, from January to March, like only one of them was pretty much a serviceable, consistent NHL starting caliber goalie. Like Ned, we all know had his issues and whatnot. So it looks like they're attacking this year. The goalie situation is more of and it's like that with a lot of positions, clearly, as we've talked about a lot. They're going to get a bunch of depth and hope that they can make their way through the season more so than like, oh, we have a long-term option here. I mean, this dude, this is going to be Reimer's age 35 season. He's certainly not a long-term option. So they went more pure backup. And I mean, I'll be honest, it's a risky backup signing. I guess I'd call it a little risky. Like, this is definitely not a sure thing. I mean, again, age 35 and had an 890 save percentage last year. And that's what, the first time in his entire career he's had a sub 900. Like, it's certainly not impossible that he kind of rebounds and on a much better team. I mean, San Jose was awful last year. Like, on a much better team, hopefully he's able to put together numbers that are more in line with what he's been doing throughout his career. But this is also like a career saving type of season almost. Like at his age, if he has back-to-back 890s, I have a hard time believing he's going to get a job next summer, to be honest. So like, this is a situation where we need a backup goalie and you want to stay in the NHL. Let's let's kind of, shake hands and give both sides what they want here.
Yeah, I mean, I said my initial reaction was like, wow, I'm surprised they signed this guy because there were definitely better people. I mean, like you and I already mentioned, abysmal season last year at the San Jose Sharks. He had one of the worst goals saved above expected in the league. That came in at a negative 6.84 across the season, and that's just not good. Of course, it was actually better than Ville Husso's by the end of the year and Alex Nedeljkovic's, so make note of that. But his save percentage was a whopping 890, which was worse than Ville Husso's. And so it's like you're trying to get a guy to come support Ville Husso, and you're bringing a guy who came off a career worst year. But that's when when I started looking more in depth on him, that's when I realized like, oh, that was his career worst year.
Yeah.
That it was the outlier in an otherwise rather impressive career. Like James Reimer, when people think of James Reimer, I still think about when him and Bernier were fighting for control of the starting job in Toronto. But I mean, he has a career save percentage of 911. and a career goals against average of like 2.8 something, I believe, or 2.6 something, somewhere in that range. So I think this was a gamble on
283 and 914.
Thank you. I think that was a gamble by Steve Yzerman to just be like, you had an awful year with an awful team. Let's see if, you go with the team that's a little bit better than your Sharks were and see if you can put up better numbers. And that's really what this is about, is trying to see if James Reimer can bounce back to his career averages. Granted, again, he is getting older, but I don't think he puts up 890 again. And let's be honest, James Reimer is probably still an upgrade over Nedeljkovic and Magnus Hellberg in the backup role. It just all comes down to whether or not he can bounce back. And that was in 43 games. He played half the games last year.
Yeah.
So like he's very capable of playing that 1B role. So I think he bounces back. I was still shocked that that's the goalie that they went with, but he's a cheap option. He's only here for a year. I think he can bounce back and put up if he puts up like a 905 save percentage as backup, that's 2 thumbs up for me. That's a great job. Because if I'm being honest, and we'll talk about Alex Line when we get to Alex Line, but I think James Reimer is pretty definitively the backup or 1B, whatever you want to call him in this situation. I don't think it's going to be Alex Line. And like I said, we'll talk about Line when we get there. But I think this is Reimer's backup net to lose, so to speak. And I think he'll bounce back.
Yeah, well, he's certainly the backup. I agree with you. I think going into camp, that's the mindset and that's the expectation. I think he'll do better than he did last year for sure. I mean, if he's even around, if he even posts a 900, as a backup, I'll be pretty pleased. And plays somewhere between 32 and 38 games or something like that. I'll be pretty happy with that. It's definitely, it's like I said, it's far from a guarantee, but to kind of offset the inability to grab like a solidified longer term 1B option in net, they instead just chose the short term depth route and got both of these dudes on shorter deals and are hoping that they can again kind of just not patch their way through, right? These aren't like 4A players or something like that, to use baseball terms, but they definitely are not going to be in the same boat last year where they're having to pick up goalies on waivers or whatnot. They're going to be a little more prepared in that sense. But yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's a clear indication. I mean, this is a very Captain Obvious statement, but it's a clear indication that they are going to reassess backup goalie a summer from now. Like, you're just kind of kicking the can down the road for a year and you're hoping that this was kind of the best option within your price range to get to that point. But if it works, then obviously it works. But yeah, it's far from a guarantee too. I mean, again, given age and performance last year, I mean, there's no guarantee that this works out. But certainly no long-term option was out there. So this is kind of the route they almost had to choose.
And I mean, they want to keep goalies on short-term deals from here on out too, because you would hope and assume that Sebastian Costa becomes NHL ready sooner rather than later. Right. So they're not committing to any goalie long-term. That part makes sense. That part I'm not arguing with. It's just the choice of the goalie that I was a little perplexed by. But if Steve Yzerman thinks he can bounce back, then I think he can bounce back too. And like I said, career-wise, he's had very good numbers. It was just a really bad year last year. The other question is what are the splits, man? Do you see, he played 43 games this last year. Ville Husso how many games did Ville Husso end up playing with the Detroit Red Wings last year? I know he finished the year he was hurt, didn't think he'd come back. He ended up coming back.
Yeah, the injury makes it weird because at one point he was playing back-to-backs and everything, but then he also got hurt. So maybe it balances out to a normal year.
Husso ended up playing 56 games with the Red Wings last year. James Reimer played 43 with the Sharks. What do you think the splits are, man? How do you think they split that goal?
Yeah, I think I think a 55-ish game season for Husso wouldn't surprise me. Maybe a little less, honestly. Maybe closer to 52. Maybe it's around like that. I mean, 50 games would be 50 for Husso and 32 for Reimer. So yeah, maybe closer to that. But 41-41 is an even split, and I expect Husso to kind of be the default on non-back-to-backs. So yeah, I'd say somewhere in the 50 to 53 range for Husso, which puts Reimer at somewhere between 29 and 32.
Yeah, I was going to say about 50-30 split. Husso gets 50, Reimer gets 30. I think that's a pretty fair split. Younger goalie trying to get his confidence back up, but you don't want to also play him too much to the point where he gets shelled like he kind of did last year at 56 games. So, but a lot of those were, I mean, he had to play and stay on his head when the team couldn't help him out. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's a reasonable number for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to you guys about Alex Lyon. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Athletic Greens. I got to give you guys a fresh overlay. I have because the new link is drinkag1.com/NHL Network. That NHL Network promo code still applies, but it is now drinkag1.com. But you guys got to start taking AG1 because it's the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports the whole body health. You got to drink AG1 because it delivers comprehensive nutrients to support whole body health. AG1 replaces your multivitamin, probiotic, and more in one simple drinkable habit. Science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food sourced superfoods. AG1 is raising the standard for quality in the supplement category, and it helps build your health foundation first. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/NHL Network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL Network. Check it out. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast.
Check it out.
Check it out. Scotty and I are going to start talking about Alex Lyon here. We were talking about instant reactions. So the Red Wings signed James Reimer, and I go, okay, interesting choice. And then like an hour later, if that, it's like the Red Wings have signed goaltender Alex Lyon. I go, what? I'm like, why did they sign Alex Lyon too? And then, of course, as I looked more into it, I was like, he's the Griffins goalie because Victor Brattstrom left the organization and they had no one to play Tendy at the Griffins level besides, you would hope, Sebastian Cossa, but you need a guy who can play that position and play it well in case Sebastian Cossa struggles, because we are looking to try and make the Griffins better too.
Yeah, this is actually like a low-key really important signing for the Detroit Red Wings because not only, to your point, you know, the being able to take a little bit of the pressure off of Cossa in that move to Grand Rapids at we'd imagine this season, but also just goalie depth at the NHL level. I'll reiterate the point I made at the beginning. Like, this is a team that is not going to find themselves in the same situation as last year when it comes to if one goalie goes down, they're absolutely screwed, right? They're not going to let that happen again. They're going to have some goalies under contract that they at least somewhat trust to plug the hole while, you know, whatever, somebody gets hurt, recovery, etc. Because last year they, you know, Husso got hurt and it was very, very inconsistent and sketchy, honestly, goaltending situation during that time. Ned obviously had a really, really brutal season and was waived at one point. And then like you were just kind of left with nothing. And then you had to search the waiver wire again for a goalie you've already had on your team. Like, that's how, you know, desperate and thin the goalie room got so quickly. So I think this is, really important signing for the organization, not only to your point at the Grand Rapids level, but at the NHL level. Like, he's not going to start the year in Detroit, certainly assuming health for everybody, but they at least have a legitimate plan if something were to happen to one of those two guys in Detroit to bank on and don't have to, you know, scurry and freak out and try and figure out a plan on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic point that you brought up. The fact that he is a strong third option for Detroit. They don't have to have that scrambling. That's because with John Lethemon also on an NHL level contract, if something were to happen to Husso or Reimer, they call up Lyon, they can move Lethemon then to the AHL to play with Cossa. So like it's clear what the hierarchy here is. And in 15 games with the Florida Panthers last year, he had a .914 save percentage and a .289 goals against average. He was solid in a small sample size, the best he's ever been. I mean, he's 30 years old. He's not a young guy. He's been around the NHL for quite some time, since 2017 when he started with the Philadelphia Flyers, but that was the best he's ever performed in a regular season. So much so that he got the nod to be the starter in the playoffs. Unfortunately, in 4 games with the Panthers, he wasn't that great.
Right.
He had a 888 save percentage and a 363 goals against average. And Bobrovsky took back over, and we all know the tale from there. But I mean, I think he is a solid third option for the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, I see people on Twitter talking about how, well, this should be Lyon who's the back. I'm like, let's slow down. Historically speaking, career-wise, Alex Lyon isn't actually all that good at the NHL level. He had a great year last year with 15 games, but outside of that, I mean, he's been kind of subpar in small, short starts at the NHL level with the Flyers and the Carolina Hurricanes, but he's been stellar at the AHL level.
Yeah, you can just look at games played at the NHL level. He made his NHL debut in 2017, and he's played 39 career NHL games. That should tell you all you need to know about who's going to be the backup on opening night. You're talking about a dang near 15-year veteran who just played 45 games, or a dude who's the most games played he's ever played in a season is 15 at 30 years old. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's, and again, like, I think he's one of the more under the radar valuable signings to the organization this year. But yeah, as far as backup at the NHL level goes, it's going to be Reimer.
Yeah, there's without a doubt that's what I feel like it's going to be. And he had 11 goals saved above expected this last year. So across those 15 games, he saved a lot. Like, he came up clutch for them. It wasn't just like he was standing behind good defense and, he didn't have to do much. I mean, he himself provided 11 or stopped and saved 11 goals above expected, which is incredible. Like, he had a great year last year, but small sample size, and history speaks. Like, we talk about how Reimer, had a bad year last year, and we expect him to regress to the mean, which is typically pretty good. I would expect Alex Lyon to kind of do the same thing. He had a great 15 games, but I don't think that is sustainable given what we know from his career. He's going to be a stellar AHL starter. He's going to help mentor Sebastian Cossa until Cossa is ready to come up and make his NHL debut. And if the Red Wings suffer an injury, there he is. I mean, he's here for 2 years. They sent him to a 2-year NHL deal worth $900,000. And I think that $900,000 speaks a lot too. He's not getting paid a ton of money by the Detroit Red Wings. This is actually less money. It is more money. I'm sorry. More money than he was making with the Florida Panthers by about $200,000, $150,000. But it's not like he's making backup money. They don't expect him to be the backup. So that's just
no. But again, like, this is actually having a legitimate, like, we're going into opening night with a third option and at goalie. Like, going into the season is something we have not had in a while. So very, very important role for sure.
Yeah. So don't need to dwell on it too much. That's just the situation. Reimer is your backup, and Lyon is your third string goalie starter in the AHL. That's good depth. I think it's good depth.
Yeah, and depth was again, I've reiterated this point a couple of times already, but like, depth was needed. This is a position that they proved time and time again over the last couple of years that can get thin very quickly. So I'm glad that they kind of addressed the depth in between the pipes, even if they weren't able to get some solidified longer term backup goalie.
Absolutely. So we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to do a How Do You Feel About It Friday. It's been a while since we've done that, and send you guys off into the weekend and into our off-season mode where we do 3 episodes a week. Exciting. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are going to do a How Do You Feel About It Friday, but I will admit I don't have any questions prepared. How did you feel about the All-Star game?
I mean, I love it, but I'm a baseball nerd, but I loved it. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoy it's funny. I was having this conversation with my buddy I was watching the game with, and like, I love the concept in the All-Star game of like miking up players and having them, like, talk to each other. They even had one where like 2 of the guys that were mic'd up were like the pitcher and the batter that were facing each other. So they were literally having a conversation while facing each other. Like, that was super cool. I always love when they mic up the pitcher and the catcher. So then they can kind of, like, the announcers will just call like an inning and just like say what pitches to throw. Like, it's super cool. I actually think it got better when they made it stop meaning something, right? Like it was winner
Yes.
of the All-Star game.
It became more fun.
The winner of the All-Star game, like that league gets home field advantage for the World Series. Like that's such a massive, massive thing that I can't. It's really weird looking back on it that it, like actually did mean something for so long. So I actually think that it kind of made it more enjoyable, honestly, when they kind of loosened up. But the one thing, and I guess I'll turn this into the how do you feel about it on your end? The one thing I can't stand, and they usually only do it on like Sunday Night Baseball or nationally broadcasted games, but they will do the mic up thing and ask like players questions in the middle of like regular season, like meaningful games. And I'm sure to like the casual viewer, that's like a fun thing. Like, oh, I get to, interview a player while he's on the field or whatever. As a manager, there's no chance. No chance. And like maybe I'm just like an old school like loser, but like
Oh, you're a
there
loser.
is no way as a manager I'm just cool with like, oh yeah, interview my players during a game. Like go ahead, have an interview. Like could you imagine like in a regular season NBA game, like they mic up like LeBron James and they're like, "Oh, LeBron, you want to ask a few questions as he's like dribbling the ball down the court?" Or like they mic up Dylan Larkin and like in the middle of a shift, they're like, "So, what do you see in here, Larks?" Like, no, dude. Like, I don't know. That really again, like as a viewer, I don't know, I guess whatever,
It's
but like as
entertaining
a
as a
manager,
viewer.
there's no way I'd be cool with that. And I just wanted your opinion on it.
Well, if you think that, of course, the managers don't like it. Like the managers don't care what fans think when they pull a guy who's throwing a no hitter. You
Right.
think they're going to be on board? Like they don't care about your entertainment value. They care about winning baseball games. So I think from an entertainment value, it's really fun to watch. But I also know, from the wanting to win baseball game standpoint, that it is
Right.
incredibly inconvenient, probably to the players too. But contracts and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. Like if you have to do it, if it's written down somewhere where you have to do it, then like I guess you got to do it. But I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just a grumpy old man yelling at a cloud. But like I can't fathom being on the coaching staff for that team and being like, oh yeah, like this. I'm really happy about this. Like I want you to focus on the game being played, dude. Not answering questions about what your favorite nacho cheese is like in the middle of a game. I don't know. That's just ridiculous to me.
It is really strange.
All-Star game though, original point. I thought it went well. Home run derby. It was a solid one. Wasn't like one of the all-time greats or anything, but it was fine.
All right. Let's see. Oh, what next? How do you feel about Philip Zadina signing in San Jose?
I mean, I'm happy for him, man. I'm happy for him. Not that there was any doubt he wasn't going to get an NHL contract somewhere, but that's kind of like a perfect fit for him, to be honest. Like he can go over there and he's going to get more ice time because they're a rebuilding team that's not very good. And so I'm happy for him that he's going to get an opportunity to take a step forward. Am I heartbroken about the like on ice production going away? No, I'm completely fine with Philip Zadina not being on my hockey team anymore. But I mean, I'm rooting for him and I wish him the best still.
Okay, cool.
What about you?
I'm same. Like, good luck, man.
Right.
Bye. Good luck.
Right. I don't know. I don't like he's gonna get more of an opportunity there objectively, but I don't know. How do you feel about I don't know. We do not come prepared for how do you feel about it Friday.
Well, it's just
We
like, we'll
prepare
think of
every other
something
part of
with
the
it,
show, not how do you feel about it Friday whatsoever.
How do you feel about let me pull something from one of my daily J's I did recently. How do you feel about I-75 maybe getting carpool lanes?
You know, I mean, sure, I guess. I don't know. I'm really tired of I have to drive on 96 all the time. And I'm just so tired of like construction on highways because that's an absolute disaster at the moment. So, yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm not like freaking out over the prospect of it, but if it means that another highway in Metro Detroit is going to have construction on it soon, then I guess that
Well, I mean,
frustrates me.
I-75 already has construction on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I-75 permanently pretty much has construction on it. When is that going to end?
It
Isn't
was
that
like
like
a
a
10-year project that started in 2016. So
20? Oh, really? Is it? I see.
yeah,
So
if I'm
honestly, if you would
remembering
have asked me,
correctly.
I'm shocked it's even that close. If you would have asked me, I would have said like 2030. Like I thought it was like a 15-year thing. So, um, how do you feel about the Tigers taking a high schooler over Wyatt Langford?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about any of these picks. I know there's 20 something rounds in the MLB draft,
Did
and
you see everyone freak out about it?
yeah, I saw, and then I saw your tweet about them going under slot so they can go over slot later. And I'm like, oh yeah, baseball draft is so stupid.
It's definitely way different than every other draft.
It's I feel like it's far more complex than it needs to be.
It's certainly more complex than any other draft, that's for sure.
I'm just like, well, like it's also one of the few. Is it the only league that drafts out of high school too? Like it's just so you don't like you're drafting kids who I mean, I guess this is the same in every sport, but it feels like you're drafting kids who still haven't like really fully figured out their game yet. So like you could draft a guy in the first round who like Casey Mize, for instance, and that's a little unfair maybe because he blew his arm out. But like people are saying he's going to be like an ace, and then he gets to the MLB level and he struggles, and it's like I feel like in the MLB,
Well, he went to college, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't really line up. I guess my point here is I feel like in the MLB, more so than any other league, you have no idea how a player is going to pan out in the draft. You take a guy number 1 overall, and it's just like, whatever.
Yeah, no, baseball definitely has it's the highest bust rate in any draft, like pretty comfortably for that reason, for
Lord
sure.
have mercy. Yeah,
I don't know. It'll be interesting. How do you feel about? It's your turn, actually. But
is it?
I still have to think of one.
Oh yeah, because you asked me about how do you feel about? This is always tough, man. I love our listeners, but I'm sure they're dying right now. Geez. How do you feel about the prospect of Disney selling off all their TV assets? I saw that today.
That's really crazy to me. So I'm like very ignorant on that. Like I don't know what I don't know. Like I'm not sure how that like affects everything. But I mean, I certainly know the impact of that and what it would. I don't know. That just feels like a really like big decision. It just feels like a really, really big move. But that industry is so weird and like evolving to this point that I mean, I guess every industry is always evolving, but like that industry specifically is evolving to a really unique point that I'm not sure anybody really knows how to prepare for. And clearly that's kind of
just give me one service for all the sports and we'll be golden. I don't want to have 6 different streaming platforms to just watch, a few teams. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Agreed. That would, I would pay a ridiculous amount of money a month to just have like every single sport available to me in one place.
Yeah. Same. Let's see. Your turn. Let me make this last one, unless something inspires me.
How do you feel? Wasn't there a big movie that came out?
Well, I know Oppenheimer and Barbie are coming out soon.
Oh, Oppenheimer. Yeah, I guess. Have you been like following all the crazy stuff that's been talked about with that? There was one tweet where somebody was like, no CGI was used in the movie, and somebody replied and said they actually nuked a place. It's just like I don't know. That movie's gonna be I mean, good or bad, whatever. I'm very far from a movie critic, but it's gonna be big at a minimum. I guess how do you feel about like are you gonna see either of those movies?
I think Oppenheimer would be interesting. I have no interest in Barbie. I don't understand. I mean, I understand like the star power that's behind Barbie, like Margot Robbie and is it Ryan Gosling? Like I get that, but I don't
Is Will
understand the
Ferrell in
appeal.
it too? There's like a
Is he?
lot of I don't know. There's a lot though. There's a lot of like big names in it for sure.
I'm just like, what is the appeal here? I don't
Well,
understand.
so it's weird to me that it's like it's Barbie, but
What's even the movie about? I haven't seen any of the trailers, so I'm
yeah.
completely
I don't.
ignorant.
Neither really have I. I don't know. It's just interesting because it's like it's Barbie, the characters and whatnot, but it seems to be like an actual story, like with an adult like twist on it. I don't know. I don't know either.
Wow, kids movie with an adult twist. Never seen that before.
I I'm not sure I'll see it in theaters, but I'm sure at some point down the road I will probably watch it just out of curiosity. Um, Oppenheimer's interesting. I don't know. I might see that one in theaters. I don't know.
Huh? All right, guys, that does it. I guess we could have spent some time and then Klim Kostin, but let's save him for another episode because we're going into off-season mode, which means that from here on out, well, with the exception of next week, we'll be doing 3 episodes a week. We have to do one makeup episode to make up for the 4th of July recording that we missed. So next week will be 4 episodes. From there on out, it'll be 3 episodes a week until probably late August, early September, I would imagine. We don't know for sure yet. Whenever the network tells us to go back to 5, we're going to give you 5. So stay tuned to that. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball.
We ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Monday, maybe. Unless that's the day we skip. No, probably Monday. I would imagine. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean the 3. We'll probably aim for Monday, Wednesday, Friday most weeks if we can.
Yeah. Plus the additional whatever we give you this week coming up. Monday, Wednesday, Friday usually is what works best, though. So, all right, we'll be back with a new episode whenever. Stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.